Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. This podcast features powerful hypnosis, so do not listen while driving or operating machinery. This recording is not suitable for those with epilepsy or severe mental health issues. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here, and on today's episode of The Hypnotist, we're going to be doing something different. You're probably used to hearing me doing a hypnosis session, but actually today we're going to have a guest practitioner, Stephen Blake, who is the founder, the creator of OldPain2Go, is joining me here at the moment. Welcome, Stephen.
Welcome, Adam. Thank you for having me on. It's brilliant.
Great to have you here. So I've already done this a few times. Most people are probably bored of hearing my hypnosis on every session, but every now and then it's good to get someone that is a leader in their field to, go through a real session. The whole premise of the show is, real therapy, real clients. So I'm happy to play the role really of someone with pain, genuine pain that I have, an old weightlifting injury. So it'd be great to go through the process. But for those people that aren't familiar, Stephen, with what OldPain2Go is and you, can you give us a bit of an intro?
Okay, it's something I've been doing for 12 years. It started when I trained in hypnotherapy and NLP. And they were teaching us N-step, or the 6-step reframe, as I believe it was called. And as they were teaching me, I was like, this doesn't seem right. If you've got a symptom, why would you replace it with 3 smaller, slightly less annoying symptoms? Why wouldn't we just throw it away? So by the time I did the technique, I actually had already changed it to my own way. I threw away the idea that I needed pain or chronic pain, and I'd had pain since I was 8 years old, back pain, and had to change careers at 38 because I had ankylosing spondylitis and arthritis of the spine, and I'd gone into teaching jobs and desk jobs and things, and my pain went, and I haven't had it back since. So it was quite funny because we had to do a breakthrough session with somebody at the end of the training. And because I had a bad memory, I thought, this is the way I'm going forward. I don't want to do 6 sessions with somebody and have to try and remember what we said in the previous session. So I'll do breakthrough sessions. I'll get somebody in for the day and I'll help them out of anxiety. And that's what I did for the first few years. But I had this party trick of turning pain off. And literally, it would be at parties, I'd see people and I'd say, are you in pain? And they'd say, yeah. And I'd say, have you got 10 minutes? And I'd help them out of pain. It progressed to the point where I don't like seeing people in pain. So I was stopping people in the street and offering my services for 10 minutes for free. And people were wandering off without the crutches, carrying them in the air and shouting yippee and things. But I never really thought to actually bring it into the business. I carried on being an expert in anxiety, and so I was working on it and developing it, but just by random people. And then one day I read this thing, and it said the neural pathways for physical and emotional pain are the same neural pathways. Now, for most people, they'd read that and so what? But for me, it was like, well, everything I've learned from anxiety, I can map across to physical pain. And everything I've learned from physical pain, I can map across to anxiety. And I got better at both instantly because it was like all the combined knowledge now. And within a week or so, I started doing pain clinics. And the first pain clinic had 9 people. And it was just an advert in the local co-op, and it was free of charge, hour and a half, come along, a group session. And I did a group session, and 5 people left totally free of pain, and 4 with it massively reduced, including one person who only came to support his wife, who was 76 years old, had back problems, but said, well, you can't help me. I've had this since I'm 19. And I've probably got arthritis and everything else now. And I said, well, you're here. You might as well go through it. Please just give me a chance. and he left pain-free as well. 59 years worth of pain he lost.
Incredible.
So for a few weeks, I ran this weekly for a few weeks. I couldn't get any doctors involved to give me clients. So I just advertised this free clinic, and I got better each time. More and more people left totally pain-free. And then within 7 weeks, I put it all together as a training program so that it wasn't just me that could do it. And I wanted to get it right around the world and sort of have somebody in every village so that nobody need be in pain. And that's where I've gone from it, because I've never recognized in anybody a need to keep chronic pain. Nobody. So that's what I've been doing now. And I've trained over 1,600 people around the world now.
It's amazing. And you know, I've been a hypnotherapist for over 10 years. Your name keeps coming up when people talk about chronic pain. It seems like you're that guy, the go-to guy for, you know, teaching people, but obviously, you know, having that knowledge yourself. Before we actually do the actual kind of protocol, the therapy, can you give us an element of what people can expect? Is it you talking nonstop? Is it back and forth questions? Like what's the modality?
I'll take you through a whole session. Initially, I just need to know. So if I take a phone call from somebody, can you help me? I just want to know roughly what area it's in: back, knee, shoulder, whatever. Might be fibromyalgia, something like that. I just need to know that they've been to the doctors with it and been diagnosed, and that they've been told there's nothing more they can do. Then I can work with them. And then I ask one great question, which is, do you want to be free of pain? Now, you'd think the answer would be yes all the time, but sometimes there's a hesitation with it as well. Sometimes somebody else is paying for it and they're not that bothered. So I'm able to work then and say, well, are you really up for this? And if they are, I book them in, and then we start again. So on entering the door, it's, are you ready to be pain-free before you leave? And if I get a firm yes, I just carry on. But if I get the hesitation, then I know I've got to deal with something that's holding them back. And then my magic phrase is, briefly tell me your problem. Now, it sounds a bit silly, this, but this makes them answer from the unconscious rather than the conscious, because they have about 2 hours worth of detail they want to tell me, and they're going to tell me it. And when I say briefly tell me the problem, it suddenly goes to, oh, you don't want to hear it all. And the conscious brain is incapable of condensing 2 hours into a few minutes. But the unconscious can do it very easily. So because they're under pressure, because I've just asked them a question and they need to answer it, the unconscious feeds them the right bits. So it's I might as well have them in trance for the next few minutes, because they then feed from the unconscious. And they will say things like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, and then tell me a story. So I listen very carefully to the stories, and I observe at the same time. So even if I've got to take notes, I have a clipboard, and I just write under the vision of my eyes, and I keep my eye on them permanently while they're doing that. And then I get all the added clues of the body language and the eye movements and the flushing and all that. And I teach people that we're very good at this. We don't have to consciously know what's changed in them. You know, you're not reporting it back to somebody later, but if you know that something changed, well, what were they saying while it changed? And it might be that you just get a little grimace when they mention a word. You know, it might be about the parents or something else, and they just grimace. And if you catch on to that, then that puts particular emphasis onto what they've just said. And a lot of the time, we're looking for like keywords in there. There are certain words that are exaggerated or have a high emphasis, and that means a lot to them. So using therapy skills, we're going to go back to that. So I let them tell me 4 or 5 sentences, and usually that's liquid gold. I mean, there's nothing in there I don't need, which is brilliant from the point of view of the therapist, because normally if we listen to the 2 hours trying to look like we're interested, we're trying to filter it out at the same time ourselves. And it's better that they filter it from the unconscious, which is in charge of the pain signals anyway. So it knows exactly what to tell us. So we have a conversation that can be quite short, it can't be quite long, and we find out why they're holding on to the pain. It's not a question we can ask them consciously, why are you holding on to the pain? They'd say, well, I'm not. But there is something in the brain, because the brain calculates pain. And not many people know this, including many doctors, is that pain is not manufactured in the part of you that hurts, it's manufactured in the brain. And it takes into account the signals coming up from the part of you hurt, and it has to take all that sensory input and make sense of it. But it also takes in your visual input and touch and everything else. Even other people's feelings come into account when it assesses the level of pain you need. So, for instance, if somebody else hurts you deliberately, it hurts more than if you accidentally done the same amount of damage. Yeah. And if you've got to put something down quick or do something that might hurt somebody else's feelings, it takes that into account to hold on to it longer, to see if it's worth holding on to it, not offending them whilst you're getting damaged. So there's a whole mass of things that I have to get people to look for. But usually the client tells us. It's not a massive digging expedition. It literally is, they'll tell us, but we have to spot it. And this is why we observe the clues as well, because they'll tell us lots of things, but some things will have real emphasis to it. So we go through that, and it's like unpacking old baggage. We sort of keep talking to them and we say, well, do you still need that? Can you understand why that would hold the pain? Yes, I do. Well, are you willing to let go of it? And sometimes you need a bit more sort of clout with it. So sometimes I'll say, well, look, you've got arthritis. You've got arthritis. Do you need a pain signal every day? If I told you the pain could go, but I got to ring you every day, how many days before it annoyed you that I'm ringing you every day saying, please remember you've got arthritis? Because that's all the pain's doing, is reminding you you've been diagnosed, you're not in any danger. It doesn't progress rapidly. It's a slowly progressing thing. So why do you need the pain? So would you like your arthritis with or without pain? Now, you're obviously going to get it without. So we then say, so we get them to make a conscious decision. Now, if we've got an audience of hypnotherapists here, they'll understand that the subconscious is under the command of the conscious. And if we get them to say in a passionate way, I want to be free of this, I don't need this anymore, then the subconscious is going to have to remove it if it believes it's going to be better to remove it than keep it. And I'll explain how we do that and why it thinks it might be better to keep it a bit later. So we get to the point where we say, are you ready to let go of the pain? So we get the conscious yes. And still looking for hesitation, anything that they might be holding back from me. And when they say yes, and it satisfies me that they are, I say, okay, let's check that out with your unconscious. So we set up an ideomotor response. Now, hopefully what's happened in the conversation is I've removed all the reasons to keep it, or had them remove all the reasons to keep it by agreeing to, oh, let go of that. Yeah, I'll let go of that. I'll be free of pain. Yeah, fine. And so this works heavily on the placebo effect. We're listening to them carefully, which is why if we say briefly, we can listen carefully because we're not listening to hours and hours of irrelevant detail. And so we've got the placebo effect going on. We're treating them kindly. We're giving them hope. So many different aspects of what you need for a placebo effect to work. But we also remove the nocebo effect. And most people aren't even aware of the nocebo effect. So placebo is, I think it will help me, therefore it does. And the nocebo effect is, I think this will harm me, therefore it does. So we're looking for when they hold on to a reason. And I think the best one I could think off the top of my head is a young woman came to see me who'd been in a car crash. She was the driver, and her best friend had been killed as the passenger, and it was her fault, the accident. And I was trying to get her out of pain, and I suddenly realized that she was holding on to this because she felt guilty for the friend dying. And it was like, why do I deserve to live pain-free? I need some sort of punishment because she's not even here, and I should have died if anybody. And I had to sort of take her through that grieving process and talk about, well, would your friend want you to be in pain for the rest of your life? You've had this 10 years. How much more do you want to suffer? When will your suffering be enough? And once she cracked and said, okay, I've suffered enough, it went. So we were dealing with all those things. Then we're asking the unconscious if it's safe to remove it. And we set up a series of 3 yeses. So we do a conscious lean forward to show what a yes is. Obviously, there's different variations. This is a head nod and various other things. But the best one is a conscious lean forward because it's quite dramatic. And when people know that they didn't actually lean forward themselves, it's a real convincer. And it's not so much with things like, your little finger rising on your right hand for yes and on the left hand for no, because whilst we get feeling that tension in there, we're not quite sure whether that's us doing it or not. So I like ideomotor responses where it's based on relaxation. Because A, it's very convincing, and B, you can't fool me that it's an ideomotor response if you're doing it deliberately yourself. Yeah? Because you'd have to relax so much to fool me that you'd actually be doing it for real anyway.
Yeah.
So I like anything that works for relaxation. So we get people stood up, we get them to lean forward very slowly, taking the weight on the toes. And then when they get to the point where the heel's about to lift, we say, that's far enough. They go straight. And now we say, don't move, just stay there. And in a moment, I'm going to ask your unconscious to move you forward as a sign for yes. It's not agreeing to anything. We're just setting up a yes signal. Once we get that, because it's not dependent on the unconscious wanting to do it or not, we get a yes quite easily, and we can get it quite vigorous if it's only doing it slightly in certain ways. So we get this nice vigorous yes. The person smiles usually and says that's weird, and we know it's worked if they say it's weird or it's strange or they smile. And then we have 2 yeses after that, which is, are you willing to remove this old pain message? We get a yes for that. I'll obviously teach people what to do if they get a no. And usually we get a yes, and then we go to, okay, well, I'd like you to remove that. And then we put in a bind to make it very obvious that we don't want you to just do this and then change your mind the following day. We want you to really consider this, a bit like having a tattoo. Don't do it while you're drunk because you got it for life. Yeah. So we're saying to the unconscious, okay, thank you for doing that. And we're always respectful of the unconscious. Thank you for doing that. I now want you to give a yes as soon as you've turned the pain off. And I want you to delete it like an old answer phone message so it can't possibly return. Now, it's now got to turn this pain off, but we've also said you're turning it off for good because it's an old message. So we're not going to numb the area. We're not turning off the ability to have pain. We're just turning off the old message that's no longer needed. And when it says yes, and this is what I'm going to do today. That was the older form of it, the really short form. And what we do now is we also want to make sure it's long term. So we sit them in a chair afterwards, and we take them through a process almost hypnotic, but just eyes closed. And we talk to them and ask the unconscious to do various things, tensing muscles up, releasing it. And then we get them to drain the pain, inflammation, and tension out of the body. And we get them to visualize that or feel it. And most people can feel it. And then when they open their eyes, the pain's gone. And then we have to do a little bit of after work of telling them to take it steady for a couple of weeks while they build the muscles up, allow some muscles to release. Because anything you've got that's lopsided, somewhere else is overworking for something that's underperforming. And the only thing we do about tablets and things is we ask them to go back to the doctors to get clear of it. So we're not doing anything that we need medical training for. Everything's safe. It's up to the unconscious now to change its mind over the calculation of the pain it made. And it does very effectively. And one of the big reasons that we get it to change, and this initially, this was the only reason we gave, which is if you keep them in old chronic pain, it may disguise something new in that area that needs to alert you. And so we do talk about the fire alarm analogy, that pain, if you see pain as being like the fire alarm bell going off. So the alarm isn't the problem. The fire is the problem that's caused the alarm. Yeah. And it's the same with pain. Pain isn't the problem when it's acute pain. It's pointing you to a problem. You get that problem fixed. If it stays on, I mean, if you went to a library near your house and you walked up and you could hear a fire bell, you'd be going, why are people sat in there? Why aren't they outside? And you might put your head through the door and you'd be very nervous and you'd be uptight, which is what we are when we're in chronic pain. You'd be saying, what you're doing in here? You'd need to, oh no, we had a fire 6 years ago. Well, I think the first thing you say to them is, well, why don't you get your bell fixed? You wouldn't say, well, keep looking for a fire, or you just say, why don't you get your bell fixed? Because your bell's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's the same with chronic pain. Chronic pain is the problem. And unfortunately, science has sort of looked at it from so many different angles. And usually it's either psychologists looking at it or doctors, but it's rarely the combined brain of the two. And so they misinterpret it. So they're saying, oh, well, it's developed really good pathways, neural pathways. That's why it stayed on. Because the pathways are getting bigger, that's why the pain increases. And none of that's true. So it's all based in logic that I do, but very fortunately, science is catching up. And now I can say, oh, it's based in science. But it wasn't based in science for me to know how to do it.
Mm.
So, so it's just a matter of getting people to feel safe, understand that if they move, it's not going to suddenly trap a nerve or do anything to them, and they can let go of it.
Mm.
And it's almost like a sales job, really, of selling them safety.
Mm.
But it has to be true, or else the unconscious won't turn it off. And because the unconscious decides what level of pain they're having, it's got to be safe if it says, well, they don't need it anymore.
Mm.
So that's how it works.
Amazing. Well, I'm quite excited to be a volunteer for OldPain2Go. So I guess over to you.
Okay. So that is something I would have had to have done as part of the session anyway, to get you to understand that you don't need this pain. Now, just briefly, tell me what your injury is or what the problem is.
So I have a injury in my left shoulder that I think, and I had a memory on social media. It was about 3 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I was lifting weights way too heavy. You know, it was an ego lift, and I had a genuine, I think I tore some kind of muscle there. And then since, even when I'm lifting weights that are nowhere near as heavy as that, and it's long gone, definitely it's healed, I can feel an echo of the pain. So yeah, and also occasionally I'll take my kids to a trampoline park. I used to be able to do back somersaults really kind of straight. Now if I look at the videos, the back somersault, I can see my arm doesn't go up all the way. It's kind of like restricted in some way, so it kind of twists my shape a little bit. So yeah, that's the pain, left shoulder.
Okay. When we get you out of pain today, would you do anything ridiculous again?
I think what I've learned is ego lifts are exactly that. So I think taking it slower, building up, but not being silly with it. And I definitely was silly at that point.
Okay. But are you somebody who does extreme? If you were better, would you go back quite quickly to seeing how much you could lift, pushing yourself? Would you do that?
I think maybe I would have the goal of having a personal best, just because that personal best was many years ago. But I wouldn't. I made rapid progress on that, and I think that was the key. It wasn't the lifting weights that was the silly thing. It was the speed that I was increasing the weight in such a short time. I wasn't giving my body the opportunity to get stronger.
So you see, a message is a message, isn't it? So the message that the brain gives us, it's very unfortunate, this. The unconscious, the conscious is in charge. We tell the brain anything, it does it. Yeah. The unconscious is the sort of like, it's our butler, if you like. We think of something, it fetches it. But if we think of something negative, it fetches it. If we think of something half-heartedly, it goes, well, you're not really bothered, neither am I. And if we're really passionate about something, it will make sure we get it. But we get very passionate about things we don't want, like panic attacks. And then we go, oh, I don't want a panic attack tomorrow for that job interview. Oh, my God. And then we go, don't give me that tomorrow. Why did you even bother telling me then? So we confuse the unconscious a lot. So we've got to get the unconscious on side to understand us better, have a better rapport with it. And in fact, I just found something this morning, if I can find it quickly. It was from Milton Erickson. Patients are out of rapport with their own unconscious, which I'd never read that before. But so when I work with people, and I've developed a very good rapport with my unconscious. So if I do something silly and I hurt myself, I can say, that was stupid. I won't be doing that again. Will you turn the pain off? And it goes instantly. Yeah. So you have to have a good rapport to do that. So your unconscious wants to feel safe. Now, because it knows in the past that you did this really rapidly, and muscle buildup, I believe, is quite often built on scar tissue, because we overdo things and it's the scar tissue that builds the muscle. So if you overdo it, then you're going to have a really big scar there and a tear there. Now, chronic pain is 3 months or anything over 3 months. But it also, I've read somewhere, and some people say, well, it's over 6 months, because there are certain muscles in the body that are a bit notorious for taking longer to heal. And it might be in the shoulder as well. So they're a lot longer to heal. Now, whilst you're in pain, you've got this thing that if you move your arm up, now you've got a restricted arm movement. So if I tell you a story of somebody I helped, this will be helpful to release you from it. A woman of 76, I dealt with several things for her. And she said, I don't know if you can help with this. I've got restricted movement in my arm. And she lifted it up to show me. She got it up to shoulder level. And she went, oh. And I was like, oh, what do I do with this? It was early days. It's 6, 7 years ago. And so I had to think it through. And I realized that nothing in your body, unless there's something there trapping a nerve, goes from comfort to extreme pain in a millimeter. Now, every other part of your body, we can move it, we can straighten certain things out and bend them the other way, but many things don't bend the opposite way. But there's not a doorstop there. There's not another bone sticks out and it bangs on it and goes, that's far enough. So it can only be muscles and tendons and things that are in control of the limit of the movement and the tension that's in them and everything else. So when we get restricted movement, we've got this tension in it. Now, when we're in pain, we always get tension and inflammation as well. And also, we put tension in ourselves when we're going to get to the point where it hurts us. Because we obviously don't like pain. It's deliberately made to be annoying, so we do something about it. So if we're going to move up to here and it's going to hurt us there, before it gets there, we're going to really tense this up and sort of wait for this pain to come. And so the brain anticipates what's coming next, and it's ready to give you this pain as soon as you get in the right place. And if you carry on in pain, it's going to get lower and lower and lower every time you use it, just by the slightest little bit, because now you're going to tense up lower to do it. So when I work with somebody, I usually have my hand on the shoulder. I ask them to close their eyes. And so I put my hand back on the shoulder. I said, just close your eyes. And I said, I want this shoulder to behave in the same way as your other shoulder does, that when it gets near the end of its movement, that it will put in a pacing system. It won't go from comfort to sharp pain. It'll go from comfort to less comfortable, to slight discomfort, to slightly more uncomfortable, to slight painful, and you can stop before it hurts you. I mean, 76-year-old woman, she was lovely. I didn't want her in pain. So I said, okay. And my thing for bringing people back into the room is your unconscious will open your eyes when it's finished, which is a lovely way of doing it, because if you say, when it's finished, I want you to open your eyes, they have to make a conscious decision about an unconscious process.
Mm.
So I always say, your unconscious will open your eyes for you and bring you back in the room when it's ready. 4 seconds later, she opens her eyes. I said, now, you're going to test your arm out, but you're not looking for pain this time. You're looking for discomfort. Move it really slowly and stop before it gets painful. And she says, okay. So now she lifts her arm up. Now, I think I've built in a pacing system, so she'll have this sort of less movement, but she's got this little boundary bit here before it hurts her. That's what I think is going to happen. I've never done it before, so I don't know. So she says, okay. So she lifts her arm up. She trusts me now. She's been with me an hour or two. And her arm starts to go up. When it went where she grimaced last time, I'm thinking, I got there a bit quick. She carries on. Her arm now goes totally right up. And when it gets right up, she says, it's getting uncomfortable now. And I said, you're 76, put it down. So I had to think, well, why did this work? And then I realized, when she told me the story, she'd had a bony spur removed on the shoulder. So after they removed it, she had physiotherapy. Now, there'd be some scar tissues from the operation and things, and the physiotherapist would get it up to a level where it was going to hurt her. She would tense up. There'd be a little bit of a battle to give it a bit more. And probably at the end of each session, they might just do the last bit that means they're higher up next time they start. But after 2 or 3 years of only getting to there, they don't want to keep hurting this 76-year-old woman. So they stop. So what she had from 3 years of physiotherapy, I removed that in 2 minutes, just with a thought process that said, well, let's try this. And then I realized that all that was happening is when she's expecting pain and she gets to there and she tightens up, it's the tightening up that nipped the nerve. When she wasn't expecting the pain, it was like, oh, Stephen's all right. He won't hurt me. I'm just looking for discomfort. It was like she didn't tighten up, so she didn't nip the nerve.
Yeah.
So I think this is what you've got in your shoulder now. You've got a fear of taking it too far and that it'll hurt. Your brain's got an awareness that you overdid it last time and built up too quickly. Therefore, when it gave you pain, it went, well, it's torn now, and it will give you pain then because it's acute pain. But it didn't let you out of it because it didn't trust you not to go straight back to it. So on the basis that you're going to give me a promise that you can do this, you're a young fit guy, you know, go back to doing it, keep yourself fit, but just take it a little bit steadier in your build up. Yeah, and you can still push yourself to the limit for how much you get your personal best and all that. But last time it seems to have been about the speed. Yeah. So if you just do that and just almost see the unconscious as another person, like your best friend that doesn't want to nag you, and it doesn't really want to tell you not to do anything, but it wants to drop hints. And that's how the unconscious works, because the conscious makes the decisions. So the unconscious doesn't want to make the decision. It's not its department. If we see the conscious and the unconscious as the same thing, but just different departments, you can see that one department goes, I don't want to make decisions. You do that. If I make a decision and it goes wrong, you blame me, and I don't want that. So it drops hints. And then the hint is supposed to be, oh, I fell off a horse, so if I don't ride a horse again, I won't hurt my back again. But it also makes it hurt when you get to the library, when you sit in the chair. And then you forget that it was the horse that caused it in the first place. You just go, I've got back problems. And then doctors join in and say, yes, you're going to have this for the rest of your life. You've got a disc or whatever. And there was the work of Dr. John Sarno. Now, a year or two after I started this, somebody said, oh, you've stolen John Sarno's work. And I said, well, I could have done if I'd ever heard of it. And it's really, this is basic principles of how the body and the mind work. And once you understand that, a lot of people might be down the same route as I am with this. And certainly science is catching on. But the difference between a lot of the things that are out there, there's CBT for chronic pain, which at the moment is the best sort of studied one for doing this. But you see, most studies are based on drugs. And in a study on drugs, they want to remove any idea of the placebo effect. They don't check for a nocebo effect either. So the very work that I do, if they test it, they'd say, well, you've got to stop being nice to people. You've got to stop listening to them. Mm-hmm. You've got to have half your audience that you pretend to work on them and you see if they get better. There'll be all sorts of restrictions there in helping people. So I get these fabulous results, but the main thing that sets me aside from anybody else is most people will do the pain education, what's the latest science and all that. And then there's like 7 other things underneath it could be, and probably quite a few of those. And then they work on those 7 or 8 things underneath that it could be. And you have to do things like exercises and do them really gently so you don't make it worse. But you have to push through the pain barrier to get it working again. And it's almost like, well, I've proved I can move that far now. But you're in fear and pain while you're doing it. Mm. And my idea is, let's take the pain away first. Let's have a look at how these 7 things interact with it. And now you can just do them. When you're not in pain in a few minutes' time, you'll be able to go to the gym, you'll be able to do weights and all that. You'll do it in the way that we've discussed, that not overdoing it initially. And you'll be able to do it without pain. So you're not at the same time tensing up, waiting for the pain. You're just going to do it because you'll have the normal body without pain again. And when we stay in pain, there's various things happen. We stay in tension. When we stay in tension, it restricts the blood flow to that area, which means even though it's healed or healing, it doesn't get the blood supply it needs to finish off the job. And when we've got inflammation, and inflammation gets a lot of bad press, it's sort of like, oh, you go to the doctor and they go, oh, you've got inflammation, here's some tablets to take it away. Inflammation only comes along for a reason. It's like a firefighter putting a hose on the fire. If you saw fires in your district and they kept happening, and how do you stop these fires? You wouldn't say, shoot the firefighters. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there to be helpful. And I always describe it as in the first few hours and day or two, if you've got an injury, if you've broken something or somebody smacked you with something, you're going to go tense to hold the bone in place. That's going to restrict the blood flow, which restricts the blood loss in that area. It holds the bone in place so it's not cutting everything else, and it might cut a vein or an artery and kill you. And it holds it all together. Inflammation comes along and it puts a space in between things, so there's not the friction there. And it's almost like a really good acid, and it knows what to dissolve and what not to bother with. Mm. And it gets rid of all the debris out of your system. But after about 2 days of doing that, it's the thing that decides what to send there to heal you. So inflammation is actually really helpful, even in past the first day or 2. So we've got lots of things going on. We've usually got pain, inflammation, and tension. So I drain all that. I probably won't do that today because we won't have time. So we'll go into the treatment in a moment. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So are you ready now to be pain-free?
Totally.
Sorry, what was the answer?
That was a totally yes.
Okay, all right. I thought you said I agree. I was like, that's not very enthusiastic.
Not enough. No.
Yeah.
Totally.
Now, do you actually have any pain there at the moment?
No, there's none at the moment. But I was in the gym a few days ago, and there was then.
Could you do for me a exercise where you show the limit of movement on both arms?
Yeah, so the limit it's just that it's more tense on this left arm. So you can probably see this goes up by my ear, and this is kind of
Yeah,
restricted a bit.
yeah. Okay, but there's no actual pain at the moment.
Like a tiny twinge when I do this, because the actual movement was up in this direction. So it's like a little bit just there.
Right, so tiny twinge, so it's not even a 1 on the scale.
Yeah, very low.
Okay, now if somebody's got a lot of pain, obviously the convincer is they're in pain and then they're not. When there's hardly anything there, so occasionally people who turn up like got migraine problems or period pains or whatever, but they haven't got them at the moment, it's less easy to convince somebody because they come along, they have a treatment, 0 pain when they start, 0 pain when they finish. So they go off going, oh, well, I'll see next time it should happen. They're almost looking for it. So they're gonna, it's like that, if I move any more than this, it's going to hurt. It's almost like that when they go off. So the only thing I can do with that is I'm going to tell you that when we finish the treatment, the areas that have now released the pain or that message of pain, they'll start to have a gentle tingling sensation or a warmth. And this will be because the tension's gone from it, so the blood's going back into it. It's quite a low-level thing, but if you sort of almost listen carefully inside, you'll notice it. So that's the best we're going to get for a result from you today. Yeah. But we will get that result. Okay, so now you're ready to let go. Would you be all right to stand up, or would you prefer to do the head nod technique?
Let's just based on where I am at the moment with the filming as well. We'll do the head nod on the chair. Okay,
right. So this is not as convincing, but it does work. Now, when you've been agreeing with things I've said today, I get to the end of the sentence and you go, yeah. Okay, now we're going to exaggerate that. We're going to do this the other way around. You've been doing it unconsciously. Now we're going to get you to do it consciously, aren't we? Yes.
Yeah.
Give me a good yes with your head. Yeah. Okay. Now, that's now told the muscles what works. Yeah. So if we did it from that normal position you got there, if you just do that, you'll notice it feels like you're pulling your head down. Yeah. Now, I like relaxing better than I do pulling. So if you just turn sideways to the camera a bit, I want you to drop your head down and then bring it back about halfway. Okay. Now, what I want you to do is just close your eyes for a moment. We're going to do a yes. We're going to set up a yes signal with your unconscious mind. Now, it will join in with this because it gets to have its say now. So just ask for a yes. Just don't help it, but don't hold back from it. Just allow the unconscious, just to give that quick jerk of the head. We're just setting up a yes. There we go. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Are you happy with that? Are you happy that you didn't do that consciously?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. So now we're in touch with your unconscious mind. So I always do this as though the client's doing it rather than I'm not going in your head to do anything. So I want your unconscious now that it can indicate to Adam that, what it wants. Is it willing now to turn off that old pain message from that shoulder injury? On the basis of what we've talked about, it's now safe to do so. Just ask for a yes in your head and wait for it. Okay. Are you happy with that one as an unconscious yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And now we'll just go for the final one. And we'll do this as an immediate one. Oh, in fact, no, we won't. We'll go through the draining of the pain because we've got enough time for it. So I want your unconscious now to give a yes when it started that process of removing that old pain message and deleting it like an old answer phone message so you can't possibly get it back. This will leave you open to new pain as and when you need it. And we're not numbing the area, we're just getting rid of that old pain message. And it can also remove any other old pain messages that no longer serve you. Maybe something that you haven't told me about even. As soon as it's ready, give you a yes. Brilliant. Okay. Now you can spin around and face the camera. We've just got a few minutes of I'll talk to you in a relaxed state. So all I want you to do is close your eyes for me and keep them closed. Now, because it isn't a trance, I don't need to talk softly or anything. So I can make sure that you hear what I say. But literally now I'm talking to your unconscious mind. Your conscious can hear it. You can do anything you like. And I particularly want you to move and get yourself more comfortable if you feel like doing that while I'm talking to you. So everything I'm going to say in the next few minutes is aimed at your unconscious. So if you think, oh, do I need to do that? No, you don't need to do anything consciously in the next few minutes. So talking direct to your unconscious now, I'm going to ask it to help you relax. Relax. And totally relax. And as you enter a relaxed state, your unconscious now can more easily find anywhere that's still tense. We've asked it to relax and it hasn't relaxed. So to get it to relax, we're going to have to tighten it up a little bit first. And it's a bit like undoing a jam jar. If it's too tight, you can't undo it. You tighten it up a little bit first. And then when you try and undo it, it's almost like it breaks the seal and it comes undone. So sometimes muscles stay in tension because of the pain. It might not be so severe on you because it hasn't been severe pain. But in a moment, your unconscious is going to scan the body looking for any muscles in tension that shouldn't be. And when it finds them, it will tighten them up for a couple of seconds. And then just like you'd pull elastic band to a full stretch, you wouldn't let go one end quickly because it would hurt you. You're going to let it go nice and slowly and gently. So under my command there, I want your unconscious to scan your body looking for any tension anywhere that shouldn't be there. And when it finds it, it's really going to tighten it up. Tight, tight, tight. Just right. Okay, Adam, you joined in with all of it there. So I don't want you to do anything consciously. I just want your unconscious to tighten only the areas that are in tension. Okay? So here we go, just with the unconscious mind, scanning the body, looking for any muscles in tension. And when it finds them, it's really going to tighten them up. Tight, 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 just for a couple of seconds. And then let it go. Nice and slowly and gently and relaxed. That's brilliant. We do that 3 times. It goes back. This is called auto-somatics, based on Thomas Hanna's work and my idea of letting the brain do it automatically. So here we go again. You did it brilliantly. So here we go. Scanning now with the unconscious mind, looking for any muscles still in tension. When it finds them, it's really going to tighten them up, tight, 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 just for a couple of seconds, and then let them go nice and slowly, gently, and relaxed. Brilliant. And one last time that you did it perfectly. One last time, just with the unconscious mind, scanning the body, looking for any muscles in tension. And when it finds them, it's really going to tighten them up, tight, 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 just for a couple of seconds, and then it lets them go. Nice and slowly, gently, and relaxed. And I want your unconscious mind now to update your muscle memory to the full range of movements you had before there were ever any problems, and to allow your muscles to be in a state of rest when they're not doing anything. And where necessary, to bring your body back into perfect balance and alignment in every meaning of those words. We're just going to finish off now by draining every last bit of old pain, inflammation, and tension to make this a permanent thing for you, that your body's free and comfortable. So what we're going to do now with the unconscious mind is it's going to scan, looking for any pain, inflammation, and tension that still remains now it's got the tension out of the way. And what it's going to do is it's just going to allow it to go. And these things are heavy in your life, so they're going to drop down through you, taken away by gravity. Like water running through pebbles, nothing can stop it. And it'll make a puddle of pain, inflammation, and tension on the floor that you'll be able to step away from today and leave all that behind. So here we go now, just with your unconscious mind, scanning the body for pain, inflammation, and tension and letting it go, starting in the head. Letting go, dropping down through the neck, through the shoulders, down the arms, through the elbows, lower arms, wrists, hands, fingers, out onto the floor. That pain, inflammation, and tension that's in the shoulders, dropping down through the spine, the whole of the back, through the chest, the abdomen, hips, legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, feet, and toes. And when every last bit of old pain, inflammation, and tension has left your body, only then your unconscious will open your eyes for you to tell you it's completed the task, and you'll enter back into the room completely free of pain. Okay. Just check yourself out. Go for your arm movements. You know it's fine now. You can move them straight up to your head now.
Yeah, it feels looser.
Yeah,
it does.
So this is what it's all about. Pain brings along tension, and when we're in pain, we tense up, and sometimes we tense up so we're not in pain, which causes the pain. And if we've got pain and tension, we get inflammation. So we've got to get rid of all three bits. That process, you can feel it leaving you. So that's the convincer. The convincer at the end. Now, I just want you to just quickly focus on your shoulder. Just look inside and notice any sensation there. And just see if you can notice that it's slightly got more warmth and a bit of tingling there in any area that was damaged. And you might notice it somewhere else in your body where you used to have pain that you forgot to tell me about.
Very interestingly, it does. I can feel like it's much more kind of loose and kind of relaxed there. But I went to the dentist yesterday, and there was kind of like a little bit. I wasn't sure whether to bring it up, but that feels, different as well. So that's good.
And that's how it works. It's getting you back into safety. And it's been reported as it's the brain's opinion if you need pain. You just change your opinion over pain.
Yeah. And what's the what would happen, let's say, after a client leaves? Do you check in with them, or do you just have the assumption that that's it, then it's gone for good?
A lot of people get annoyed when I say I just go on the assumption, because I've been through it for 12 years. I've worked on about 9,000 people now, and a lot of them live around here. So I bump into them on a regular basis, and they're still fine. So I can't be responsible for somebody's opinion of their pain. So if they go away and they go, oh, go to the gym today, I'll go for my best personal, and they hurt the shoulder, that would show really badly on me. It's like, oh, it only lasted a day, but it doesn't reflect on me at all. So if people take notice of it and they don't put themselves in that fear of damage again, they're fine. And because we've asked the unconscious to change something, and I'm a big believer in when people have an aha moment, something that they thought was true now becomes, that's not true, and here's a new truth. I believe that the neural pathways in the brain that believe the truth take over, and it just puts the new ending on it. So you've got heavily fired up neural pathways already there, but now it points to the better thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because it does, again, echo a lot of people's experience with anxiety. When I've worked with people with, let's say, fear of being trapped, if they're trapped in a elevator or a tube, and they keep replaying the story of them being trapped. But then I say, but what happened afterwards? And they're like, oh, I ended up leaving the thing, but they never play that story, if that makes sense. It's the bit of maximum thing. And I imagine because pain is so undesirable, you hone in on the bit that's the most intense rather than the bit that, is the release of that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've got any more time because we're coming up to the hour. Are we all right?
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I used to have claustrophobia. And so I had an attack one night, and it wasn't till the next day that I found out the trigger. But I was at a party in a pub, and I went to the loos, put myself in a cubicle, and then just had a massive panic attack, came straight out. Went back to see my girlfriend, and she was like, she just took one look at me and said, "What the hell's the problem?" I went, "Massive panic attack." I managed to get in the car by winding all the windows down, drove to her house, got there, couldn't sleep in her room, which had blackout blinds and things, sat in her lounge with patio doors open. And I had this for about 4 hours in the freezing cold in this room. I didn't close the doors. And for 4 hours, I just beat myself up. I was having I've never had such a bad panic attack. For a while, I thought I might die. My chest was beating, and I thought my heart would literally fall out. And so this carried on for 4 hours. Towards the end of it, I was like hoping I would die just so I'd be free of the pain. And then I started to think, you're a therapist, Stephen. If you're behaving like this, how can you help anybody else? You don't understand panic attacks until this. So I was like that for 4 hours. And then I started to calm down a little bit. And then I went through, what is this about? And it all stemmed from, I had a fear of having vaccinations and things at school. And it was mainly because it was a boys' school, and there'd be even the tough kids used to sort of scream and cry when they got the vaccination. And it would pass down the line, oh, a needle's broken off in their arm,
Mm-hmm.
And it was all that. So I had to go for a vaccination for polio once. And my mum said, well, it's very important you have it, or else you end up in an iron lung. Now, most people don't know what iron lungs are, but it was it's almost like a coffin, but your hands and your head peep out. And they used to put pressure in it to work your lungs. They obviously have better methods of doing that now. But she described it like a pirate's chest. And I hadn't seen one. I didn't know about them. So I thought they'd have to fold you up to put you in there. So she's telling me if I don't have this thing I fear, I'm going to end up folded up in a box with the lid on it.
Yeah.
I suddenly realized I'm not frightened of confined spaces. I'm frightened of not being able to breathe. Because the bent double as well would be the sort of, you can't breathe. So I went, oh, this isn't about confined spaces, it's about breathing. So if I get in anywhere, as long as I can see daylight above the door, I'm fine. All that's happened is, as long as I've got water there and I can drink, I could be in there a few days. I'll just lose some weight. So I was like, got quite blasé about it then. So then I said, okay, unconscious, I want you to turn off that old program. I don't need it anymore. As long as I've got air to breathe, I'm fine. I don't need a problem with confined spaces. And I was asleep in 2 minutes. The next day I'm driving home. I think I got quite excited about shutting myself in a cupboard when I got home. I couldn't watch anything about caving or anything like that on TV. And now I'm going to go home and shut myself in the cupboard. So I get home and I got an office with a door only about this high and a cupboard. It's about 2 foot square inside. And I go in there and I close the door. And I'm there and I'm getting bored. And I think, I'll come out. I haven't got claustrophobia anymore. And I went to open the door and the door jammed. And for a split second, I went, oh. And then I went, you can see daylight top and bottom, Stephen, you're fine. And then sort of when I wasn't pulling on it dramatically, it just opened normally and I came out. I've never had claustrophobia. Literally went in 2 minutes. Once I worked out, I didn't need it. But this is about having that rapport with your unconscious. Once you get to that point where you can talk to it like your best friend, you see, when we're in pain, we sort of think of it like the enemy. You're giving me this. We think pain as a punishment, but it only ever gives us pain to a level that's just enough to get us to take action. And this is how I worked out we could switch it off. Because if it's giving you pain and there's no action you can take, it's a message from a messenger who comes every day to tell you something that you already know about.
Yeah.
Why would you
Well,
need...
that's the paradox, isn't it? Because pain, anxiety, worry, it's got a positive intention. It's trying to do something useful, but actually it's a case of, you end up shooting the messenger because the vehicle for that protection suddenly becomes the thing that you want to avoid. So when you had that panic attack, it was no longer small spaces you wanted to avoid. It was the panic attack, which you linked to being in small spaces. Once you figured out that actually you can be in small spaces as long as you can breathe, well, then that different evaluation escapes. But you get these loops that feed on themselves that trap. And at that point, people don't trust their intuition anymore because the intuition is the cause of their panic or their pain.
So the interesting thing is, I had claustrophobia, as far as I know, from like 13 onwards. And so what had happened that night, I hadn't had a panic attack for ages because I'd got used to the idea of not going in lifts and doing things. So it didn't frighten me because I didn't do it anymore. So what had happened is I was sat talking to a guy and he was telling me about his holiday in some strange country. And the police had pulled him up for speeding when he wasn't speeding and wanted a bribe. And he wouldn't bribe them, so they put him in jail. And I didn't know that until the next day. But the moment he said that, I think I was like, oh, I'm off to the toilet now. And then I had the panic attack. I wasn't consciously aware that he'd said that. But then suddenly it was, oh, yeah, I remember now. So it's really interesting what you can trigger you off. And it's not real, is it?
No, it's all
him that went to jail, don't he?
it's the imagination, isn't it? It's I work with so many anxiety clients, and what it comes down to really is the loop that the evaluations that they make create the emotional state that gives them more evidence that the evaluations are real, and it just kind of feeds on itself, and then you've almost got to call its bluff in a way and say, what if it isn't real? And then when you're out the other side, well, then you've got the evidence of a different, kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Stephen, for people that have listened to this and maybe they are living with chronic pain, maybe there's a hypnotherapist that wants to learn your protocol to have an impact on people in the world, what's the best way that they can learn more about you?
It's all on the website, which is OldPain2Go.com.
And that's pain, two with a number, isn't it? Old Pain number 2Go.
And we've got everything on there because I've been studying the science the last few weeks to make sure that everything was in line with it. And it is, but each chunk of it's in line with science, but nobody's really put it all together. Nobody's put this final convincer of, well, let's get them out of pain and then deal with everything else. So there's the science on there. There's a results page. It's an amazing thing. I had 216 feedback forms I'd accumulated, and then one day when I realized it, I was like, what am I going to do with those? So I studied statistics when I was doing a master's degree. So I thought, oh, I'll pull them together and do some stats from it. So I found out that on average, there was 216 forms, about 50% I'd worked on. The other 50% was a one-off session for somebody I'd trained that day, who then worked on somebody. This is why I ended up with the forms. And it was 94% of the pain went. 77% of the people who turned up left totally pain-free. The other 23% had it reduced by 76%. And then a few days ago, I managed to find the file with these forms in, and I did a bit more analysis. I went through my diaries and worked out the ones I'd worked on, the ones my student worked on. And this is why I know it was 50%, because I thought it was less than that. And when I checked my results against somebody who I'd trained, who'd just done it for the first time, I'm only 2% better than them. Which at first I could have gone, oh my God, I'm only 2% better than the people I trained. But then I was delighted by it because it proves the actual thing works. The process must work if on average that they're all nearly as good as me straight away. So it's a really unique thing. It's really simple. It does take me 8 hours to teach it, but I'm trying to prepare people to understand the mind, the body, conscious versus unconscious, all those different elements, so that if they're landed with something entirely new, they're not stuck with, oh, I wasn't taught how to deal with this. And this is what happens when people turn up, because they turn up with all sorts of things. And the amount of people I've helped with, like, oh, there's only 1 in 9 million people in the world got this. And I still help them, because there's a pattern, like you say, with anxiety. There's just a pattern there. It's different actual events and things, but it's the same pattern.
Yeah. The nuance is always different. People are different, but the structure is very similar because it has a function to it. You know, chronic pain has a function. It's just not useful anymore. If it's the messenger, like you say, it's that fire alarm that's still ringing when the fire is long gone. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it is the problem. Chronic pain is the problem. It's not pointing to a problem.
Mm.
Once people get that, then you can understand you don't need it. And you know, if it's changing your opinion, well, quite easy to change your opinion over something, isn't it?
People do it every day. Yeah.
Given enough evidence, you'll change your mind about things. So.
Absolutely. So if you are experiencing chronic pain, check out Stephen, OldPain2Go. And if you're a hypnotherapist wanting to train in OldPain2Go, again, oldpain2go.com. Was that, Stephen?
Yep.
Amazing. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fascinating. I'm going to test out the gym, but I will take it easy. And thank you again so much for your time today.
Lovely. And thank you for inviting me again. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Hypnotist with Adam Cox, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. To automatically receive the latest episodes, please subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, please share this episode with just one friend you think it could help. And if this episode helped you, please leave us a 5-star review.